Hey, I want to talk to you about adjudication, the word adjudicate, which means to judge. Now, we're told that we're not supposed to judge and that judging is wrong, but let's face it, we all do it, right? I mean, we all judge. But there is sometimes a need to judge. And I'm not talking about judging people because you don't really know what their situation is, you don't know what they've been through, and you just don't know what's going on. But the word adjudicate means to judge or to be judged or to make a decision about something and move forward. So in the criminal justice system, once you're judged by the judge and convicted or make a plea, you are considered adjudicated. You have been judged. But sometimes we have to adjudicate, which also means in order to do that, we have to separate. So listen up. In order to adjudicate, we have to separate. I'm talking about situations. I'm talking about evaluations. I'm talking about relations. So sometimes we have to remove ourselves. We have to distance ourselves. We have to separate ourselves from a situation, a person, a group, a business, even a family member, in order to adjudicate the situation. So there are times where we do need to judge, and the judgment of that is, let me step aside, let me step back to evaluate where I'm at so that I can judge the situation properly to make the best decision for myself. That's when you should be judging. So, judging is not always bad. And sometimes we judge the people to see if we need to terminate out of a certain situation or relationship. That may be a good thing, be a bad thing. And sometimes people do it to you. And that's okay too. So just remember, sometimes in order to adjudicate, you have to separate. Why? Separation gives you the time to see things clearly. That separation gives you the time to think about things. That separation from the person or the thing or the situation or the environment gives you what you need to reflect. It gives you what you need to be clear about it. You will get that clarity. You will get the discernment that you need to justify your decision. And I don't mean you have to make justifications. You don't have to explain yourself, because we tend to justify why we did something. But justification can also lead to clarification, which will lead to adjudication. So when you are justifying your reasons internally, that's okay too. I'm not talking about justifying your actions. I'm talking about justifying your reasons. So let's say I can't do this because it affects that. And because it affects that, it puts me in a bad position. So you have justified why you are deciding not to do what that is. I want you to think clearly about everything that's going on in your life, right down to the people you spend your time with. And then the things that you spend your time on, TV, movies, hanging out with the wrong people. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a good movie. I am a movie buff, love movies. But there is a time and place for everything. So, I was talking with some folks this morning. If you really need to take the time to reevaluate, then something is going on. And you better listen, because it's in your internal gut. They tell you listen to your gut. But sometimes reflection is needed, because all we do is we stay on that hamster wheel and we stay stuck in the mud. We stay in a situation, be it a job we hate, a house, neighborhood we don't like, friendships, or we do things because we feel that we're obligated to do it. And the reality is, stop. The only person that's going to make the adjudicated decisions in your life is eventually you. You might let other people do it, but the fact that you are letting somebody else do it says that you are not comfortable where you are. It says that you're not secure where you are. It says that maybe your self-esteem is a little bit low. How do you fix that? How do you adjudicate to the next level? How do you judge the situation that you are in? So you're judging your situation, not somebody else's, to get to that next level, to get over that hump. I want you to think about that. And then I want you to ask yourself, how can I get past this? And then find the solutions to that. So once you have judged the situations, now you have something to go back to change the situation. So separate, adjudicate, and then make it happen. Make it happen. You can separate from it and not adjudicate it. And you can adjudicate it and not separate from it. But if you separate, then adjudicate, you got to follow through. You got to take the actions to get to that next level. Trust the process. Trust your gut. Trust your gut. Something doesn't feel right, it usually isn't. And sometimes we need to adjudicate because the perception is something that it's really not. Because, perception is truth. It's reality for a lot of people. But it's not always the entire truth. So perception becomes reality, like it or not. If it's truth or not, it becomes the truth because we let the perception of a situation or a person or a thing or whatever you want to equate that to dictate what it actually is. And it might not even be what you think. Sometimes we tend to judge before we evaluate because we make our decisions based on a perception. We judge a situation based on what we think we see or based on what somebody else has said about it. I encourage you to do your research. I encourage you to trust your gut. I encourage you to take that first step. Separate. So I encourage you to take that first step. Separate. Then adjudicate. And then follow through on what your decision is. And if that means that you go back into the situation, and then do it. If your research determines that that situation was not really what you thought, and you were walking away based on some information that you did not know about, to take that first step. First, you have to separate. Get yourself out of that environment. Take a step back, look at it from the outside looking in, see what that looks like, what that perception and appearance is, because it might be different than what it was while you were on the inside. And you might see things a little bit clearer, which is going to allow you to adjudicate, to judge where you need to be. And then you can't stop. You got to follow through. So sometimes you go back into the situation because what you thought was going on really wasn't, and that was the right place for you. But you took the time to evaluate it. And sometimes you need to step out of it. And that's where we have problems. That's where we don't want to. It's going to hurt somebody's feelings. It might take a hit to your income. It might make somebody unhappy. But if you stay there, you're the one that's going to pay that price. Just something to think about.